Setting boundaries has cost me friendships, caused conflict, and made me unpopular more times than I can count. And I keep doing it anyway. Because at the end of the day, it has made my life so much easier and less draining, right? So, in the environments I had been in, setting boundaries really didn't go down well. And it wasn't always older people. Sometimes it was peers, sometimes people just a few years older, right? And honestly, some of the hardest frictions I had with other women. So what I learned pretty quickly is that as a woman, it's not always safe to shine or to stand out, because there is always someone who finds it threatening, right? And more often than not, it's another woman. So what I personally found particularly hard really was being good at what I do. Because in my experience, that seemed to make it worse. Peers could be challenging enough, right? But in my experience, the hardest reactions came from older women who felt threatened by a younger woman who really knew her stuff. And that's a cliche I wish weren't true. But in my experience, it really is. I even experienced this in friendships when I was younger, right? So those friendships worked fine as long as I didn't outgrow the other person, as long as I didn't shine brighter than them. But the moment that changed, also the support disappeared and some kind of, sabotage started. So in my experience, envy and resentment really play a much bigger role than most people would really admit. And what I kept noticing was what happened after I set a boundary. Not dramatically, not aggressively, just clearly. So some people would become extremely cautious and others really went the opposite direction, right? So they tried to start a power struggle, subtly putting me down, trying to make me feel small. And that really was the more exhausting version, right? But sooner or later, they really had to learn that they weren't getting anywhere with me either. So over the years, I really kept practicing setting boundaries consistently. Because through my behavior, I really trained the people around me. I showed them what they could and couldn't do with me. And if I didn't set boundaries early on, this really compounded. So people would allow themselves more and more over time. And that really was much harder to get out of than just being clear from the start. And, what this really gave me was I didn't have to deal with nearly as much anymore. So when someone tried to dump their work on me, for instance, or push something onto me that wasn't mine to carry, that really happened a lot less because, people had learned. They treated me with more respect, and I really didn't have to keep setting the same boundaries over and over again, which obviously saved an enormous amount of energy. And also it really, it kept certain people out of my life altogether. People who had no sense of boundaries to begin with. And also those friendships from when I was younger, right? The ones with the envy and the sabotage. I also sorted those out as I got older. Which also meant that I wasted a lot less time and energy by being consistent about what was and what wasn't worth my time. So yeah, as always, I'm curious to hear how it looks for you. Where in your life has setting a boundary actually made things better? I would love to hear about it in the comments. See you next time.